this one here. This little fella here, that's coming out.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move on.
And I like to put a little date on there so I know when they were changed. You can also do it for the brake pads as well. I've written the date on it just in there, so I know that 2019 in September I changed these and they're looking pretty good. I'll move this. So let's get it changed. There you go. Let's get back to the car and get it on. So I hope these videos really help you. Give me a thumbs up if you got the time. Thanks. It's a 21 nut. It's a 21mm nut, by the way. You can just about get the socket on it to start with by gently squeezing this rubber boot up and it will fit. I don't want to damage it, so I'm just using an open-ended spanner, or wrench as you guys say in America. Fortunately this isn't spinning on me either, so we'll see how easy this is to remove this ball joint. Okay, right, that's the first nut off. There we go, 21mm. I'm hoping, a little tip, is hit this here, give it a shock. With a bit of luck, this will then drop down. Fingers crossed. Right, let's turn around and let's get these two. Let's get this bolt out now. 21mm nut as well. I'm going to use my foot on this, get some leverage. There she goes. Good old feet. Let's make sure the other side's not spinning. Okay, I can feel the other side spinning now, so I'm going to hold it with my open-ended spanner. There's a new wrench. By the way, what do you guys call this in America? Is this a socket, or is it a wrench, socket wrench? I call this a socket. 21mm on the other side, so I'm just going to hold that in place. There you go. Okay, I'm going to try and tap this out. Little tip, put the nut back on again. In fact, you can reverse it if you wanted to. That way you don't knacker the threads. Just like that. I should be able to punch that out now. There she goes. And there's your bolt. I like to put the nut back on again, just so you know where everything is. Okay. Okay, we need to undo this little thing here, which is to do with the suspension height. Well, that's not going to work. Finally. So here, look, you can look at the distance in that movement. So there's the old one, and there's the new one. Let's get it on. Now you don't have to do this, I just like to do this. I think if I put a bit of grease just around this top here, then it will help with water going inside over time. It should be a good tight seal anyway, but it's not going to hurt. This is just a bit of copper grease, but I don't put anything on the threads, because that way if you put the grease on the threads, it changes how much you have to torque that up, so it's best to keep that dry. And if you look at the old one, you can actually see that the water has kind of got in down the back there, and it may have caused that to wear out over time, but it's up to you whether you put the grease on. So that's it there. Right. Clean off any rust inside. Okay. and a new nut. This one's got a nylock on it, a thread lock. It's a nylon seal which stops it vibrating loose, so might as well put that on. The original one had a flat on it. It's up to you whether you use the new one or not. In fact, do you know what? I am going to use the old one. I think it's got a wider base to it. Okay, so I was going to do it hand tight. It doesn't need to be any more than that. Now I'm going to get this bolted up the top here. So I'm just going to do this hand tight. Notice that there's little gnarlings on there which obviously match up to it here. So I'm not going to tighten this up. I'm going to lower the car down and then I'm going to tighten it. Otherwise that bush hasn't got anywhere to, it's already going to be twisting. If I tighten it up with the wheel off the ground, it's not going to be in its sort of natural height. So I'm going to put this back up and then I'm going to leave it a little bit loose and then tighten it at the end when I put the wheel back on. Okay. Right, so this bolt is loose, and it's loose on purpose because I want this arm to sit right as I lower the vehicle down. Don't forget this little suspension sensor. It's a little 10mm nut that goes on this arm. It's a 10mm socket and spanner. Sorry, what do you call these? Wrench in America. What would you call this? Is this a little socket? Drop it in the comments below. I'd like to know what that's called. It's good to learn what different places around the world call different things. So I haven't done this before, and I'm not a mechanic, but I am an engineer. So the reason I do these videos, by the way, is because I like to see what it's like doing the job for the first time. Now I haven't done this job before, but I've worked on similar vehicles. I'm not a mechanic, I just have a natural interest in cars, and I've generally always managed to solve problems along the way, even if it does mean having to whack the hell out of it with one of these to get the ball joint off. But nevertheless we got there, and sometimes having basic tools like I've got here, I find is more informative, because not everybody's got a workshop. I'm having to work underneath the car, which is on a slight hill. Sometimes we've got to make do with what we have. So I hope these videos really help you. Give me a thumbs up if you've got the time. Thanks. Okay, so all the components are back on, albeit loosely. I'm going to now tighten up this ball joint properly. It will probably end up spinning on me. There's a little Allen key on the end. There's the old one. Allen key, what do you call those in America? Allen wrench, and that'll stop it spinning. But I'll start to tighten it up and see how we go. Usually goes so far and then it'll start spinning on you. Yeah, I can see it starting to spin there because the rubber bush is starting to turn with me. So let's get the spanner, sorry, the wrench. Let's go back, see how that's moving there. Okay, good. So now I need an Allen key. Yeah, it's a 6mm. There's my 6mm. Okay, good. 6mm on. Now you can tighten it without it spinning. See how it's turning with it? Like that. So you've got to stop that from moving. And it's a taper on the shaft of the ball joint, so it bites in as you tighten. Should get to a bit where it will stop turning on you. Okay, now I can feel it's starting to bite, and this shouldn't move now. See? Locks in. Now, bearing in mind how much this took me to take off, I don't need to be too tight with it. So, this is done with the little sensors on. All I've got to do now is tighten this up, but not until I put the wheel back on, so that this arm can go into the level position and the little knurlings on there will line up. Otherwise I'm going to put stress on that bush. So let's get the wheel back on. So the spec says 130 to 140 Newton meters. Seems to be the range, so I'm going to go 135. Right, now I need to get the car to sit down at its regular height. So I'm lowering this now to get the arm to sit in its natural position. There we go. Jack's off. So now that the arm is nearly in its normal position, I can then tighten this up. I'm going to roll it backwards and forwards and then tighten it. Okay, so if you look now, this is now sitting in its normal state, so I'm now going to tighten up this, and it won't put as much stress on this rubber bush because it's not being twisted. If I tighten it at the top, then it's probably always going to be about 1/3 of a turn out. So this is the position I wanted it in before I tightened it. Fortunately, on a Range Rover, there's enough space for me to get underneath. So, done. And here's my point in case is, I do these videos so that you can see just what is involved in doing it. You may not have done it before, so the idea is that I take all the pain just because I've got a little bit of a knowledge of how to do these things. Right, so done. And this is my point in case, and this is why I do these videos. Is you get people that will show you, oh, you need this, this, and this tool, but the reality is I haven't done this job before, but I managed to do it, and it's taken me a little bit of all these tools to get it going, including a hammer, and most importantly a ball joint splitter, because I ended up actually breaking my ball joint splitter. I just couldn't get it to work, and it actually sheared the end of the bolt there, so a bit of brute force got there in the end. And as I said, that's why I do these videos, is so that you can see perhaps realistically what's involved. So I'm going to put all this away now, but the only tools that you need I'll show you in a second. So there we go, out of all the tools that I had, this is what's left. This is all you need. And that's the whole point of my videos, is that I actually get things out of boxes I forgot that I had. But eventually I got there. So I've done the hard bit, I've gone through the pain. All you need to do when you do the job is have a look at these tools, and I'll quickly go through them now. Started off with the ball joint here, that's a 21mm nut. You can just about get the socket on there. You have to push back the rubber gaiter on the drive shaft, but you can just about get that in. So 21, I call that 21mm socket. Let me know what you call that in America, my American friends. I don't know, is it a wrench, 21mm wrench, adjustable wrench? And as you start to undo that nut, then it's going to start to come up the thread. So then I just used an open-ended wrench. See, I'm learning. Spanner, 21mm again. On the other end, you then got the bolt that went through. Again, that's 21mm. When you put it back on again, remember I mentioned about these little gnarlings here, and these line up with the mating face on the car. So what I did was I made sure when I put this in, I didn't just tighten it in that position. I lowered the car back down, it went into its natural ride height, and then I tightened it. Otherwise, this whole rubber here, it's going to be sort of half twisted, and you probably end up deteriorating that quicker than you actually need to. And the last one is this little sensor here. That's for the height on the suspension. It's a 10mm little nut that you undo. Most importantly, and the most difficult job of the day, was removing that ball joint. I used my ball joint splitter tool, but it ended up breaking. So I just went back to my good old-fashioned one here, which has worked for years, and it just literally goes on, and you just hit it. I tried doing the old trick of hitting around the side on the car to try and break that seal, but it just wasn't having it. And looking at this here, this has been on here for quite some time, so it was a bit of a struggle to get that off, but we got there in the end with a bit of perseverance. And that's the whole point of this channel, is to show you what it's really like. There's a lot of videos out there where people will say, oh, do this and do that, but realistically you perhaps haven't done the job before yourself, and you want to know if it's really that difficult. And from watching this video, I hope you can see that it wasn't that bad. Just give you the confidence to try and tackle that job yourself. Overall, it took me about just under 2 hours, I think, to do it. If I had to do it again, and this is the key thing, if I had to do it again, I reckon I could do the job probably in half the time. And it's always that way, because you do the job half the time with half the tools when you know what you're doing. And that's the whole point of my channel, is to try and help you to give the confidence so that you can tackle the job yourself. Anyway, best of luck, and let me know how you get on. See you next time.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move on.